Starts with a mark.
One of my favorite. What is up, everybody? Episode 25, Pickers Market Podcast. Got the normal crew here. The couch superstar Gangl.
Yep.
Tyler. And then we got, wow, look at this. We got the leader of the pack coming over here.
It's a big get.
Yeah.
It is
a win.
First time, right? We had to have a big get on the first
Why
one.
why wouldn't we? You know, you go big, right? Jay Guerin in the house. How are you doing, Jay?
Doing well. Thanks for having
Tyler,
me, guys.
Yeah.
you got like 4 seconds and then it had to stop. I guess we were
I don't know. It's not going through my headphones, so I don't even know if it went.
It was working.
It was working.
Oh,
It was working. Yeah, you
I
were kind of doing a
appreciate
little. You were doing a little remix action there.
Tyler.
So episode 25 is to Tyler's lament. I always, I name our episodes by numbers, sports numbers. This one is medically enhanced episode here, gentlemen.
No.
25 is Barry Bonds and Big Mac, who I gotta share it, is the guy over there just before we came on.
Jay,
Not
he's
Jay.
A baseball guy.
Tyler comes on and says, I have Big Mac in the notes. And he's like, I have no idea who that is. Jay, how bad does that hurt?
At least
That hurts.
At least I know who Barry Bonds is, right?
That's true.
As a baseball guy, it hurts that you don't know Mark McGuire's nickname.
Oh, okay. I know Mark.
Now, you know Mark
Okay.
McGuire
Yeah.
at least, Tyler?
Yes, I
Okay.
do. Yeah.
All right.
Well, growing up, you always had the McGuire bats, the like kids like
Right.
Yeah.
home run bats,
Yeah. Until
so I know
like
And
the
medication.
steroid
Yeah.
action.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Then
Yeah.
McDonald's stopped.
You had the bats with the
giving them
needles. Those are both good, right? It's the combo. It's a combo meal.
Well, now I know his nickname.
So Jay, I had to name baseball players because I wanted to give you a little shot. You've got a pretty interesting little backstory on baseball in your life right now.
Yeah, I've got 2 older boys who are a junior and a freshman at the University of Iowa, and they're playing some baseball down there. And
Nice.
so I'm blessed that they're both at the same school.
Yeah.
And,
Right?
I don't have to do like the sewn jersey where
Yeah.
I've got half and half. But huge blessing to have them playing some competitive baseball and reaching some of their goals as far as baseball.
That is so cool.
And you're a super fan too, right? You can go to a lot of their games.
I do go to a lot of the games.
Did you see his shoes walking in?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
I do. I do have some Hawkeye swag going today.
That's what I guess I'd be more worried. If they went different schools, that's a problem. But one goes East Coast, one goes West Coast. With how many games that you go to,
Yeah.
you'd have never been off a plane.
No, there was a lot of talk on different schools when Tyler was looking, and he was looking at some other Big Ten schools, which I'm like, okay, at least there might be some crossover. And then he was looking at California and Arizona schools. I'm like,
I'm in real trouble here.
And then I do have 2 at home. I've got a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old, both boys at home that are big baseball fans and hockey players, and so trying to divide the time and make sure that I get all their games in the spring is it's a mighty task, but it's a fun one.
I was going to say, so your job is caravan at this point, right?
That's a fact. And I lost both my other drivers, so the older boys are
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to take that burden on your own.
Molly and I are constantly driving around. That's for sure.
Jay, we should probably, we know you well. I'm sure most of these listeners know you well, but why don't you kind of just walk us through, like, I was making fun of you earlier about your fancy new title, but why don't you give us what that is?
Yeah. So one of the things that we've just done here at Gradient is we created a role called the Advisor Development Officer. And where we saw a need was, we've become really good with our systems and our processes and our technology. One of the byproducts of that, I guess, is it starts to remove the human element. If we're able to do e-applications on everything and everything gets submitted directly to the carrier, and we're able to give you a process to follow and give you a system to follow, that's great. But we start to get removed as the human side of it. And we've seen that as kind of a blind spot, and we need to bring that human element back. So as the advisor development officer, I really see that I am a liaison and an advocate for our advisors to say, what are you encountering? What are you seeing in the field? What are you coming up against? And then is what we're creating hitting the mark?
Yeah.
Because if no one's talking to them and we're just creating stuff over here, when we roll things out, we're like, I don't know where I'm supposed to use that.
Right.
So act as that liaison between the field and what we're doing, and be going back and forth with, are we making sure that this stuff is hitting the mark and that we're actually really providing value to our advisors?
Love that. That's very cool, because it's, I mean, we spend most of our time here talking about businesses and companies and how they're interacting with the marketplace, if you will, right? But sometimes we forget we're our own business too, and we have to service people in the proper fashion. And I think what you're doing is going to be very cool for us.
Yeah.
So
I'm excited about it. Thank you.
Well, so there's also been a debate. Are you still and remaining president?
I am. Yes. So I am also president of Gradient Life Brokerage. So as the advisor development officer title and role came about, I said, I feel like this, is this just falling under like other duties as assigned? But, that's the largest font and in bold of my job description, I think. So yes, I am dually titled right now, Tyler.
Okay.
But
that was the debate that we were having.
Yeah.
Busy man.
So we talked about wearing the two jerseys. Now you got to wear those two jerseys, right?
The old take off. Okay, I'm taking off my
which hat? Yeah, which hat is going on now? Love it. So, gentlemen, we just had our Elite Advisor Forum. We talked about it in a couple of other episodes here about what we were excited about. Now I just want to hear, now that it's done and my heart rate is back down to normal levels after being elevated for about 2 or 3 days straight, what do you all see as your favorite moments during that period of time? Tyler, why don't you go first?
I mean, I always enjoy the Navy SEAL stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always just fascinating. Those guys, their mentality is just so different. Like, I can't imagine what they go through. But I feel like we had a guy by the name of Phil Coons, and he was different than the other ones. He wasn't as like raw motivational, but he brought like real world combat of what he experienced in the SEALs to like his life and how you can incorporate that. And I thought it was really cool. He also brought clips and all of his gear from his time in the SEALs and kind of went more in depth on Bud's training. And I just eat that stuff up. Like, I'll watch YouTube videos on it. So that part was really, really cool for me.
Got it.
I'd have to agree. That's the same for me. I mean, obviously we hear these investment guys in the past, but those motivational speakers from the Navy, for the SEALs, it's awesome. Number 2 favorite thing kind of touches on you is not seeing you have a heart attack. You were a little bit stressed out on our
I
first
don't
speaker.
get wound up. I don't get wound up hardly ever at all. But for that event, I want it to go so well. And when we have some hiccups, we had very first was, coming off, he was on the car and on the way about 5 minutes before he's supposed to be on stage.
Our first presenter.
I was not taking it well. Yeah, nothing gets me too riled up, but that one sure did.
Yeah, that was good. But he was good once he got there. I mean,
exactly.
you almost had to go up there and wake him out of bed. I hear he overslept, which who oversleeps anymore?
That's what he was surprised by as anyone.
He was West Coast, so the 8 a.m. wake up call was probably 6 a.m. for him.
Yeah, so I will give him. I'm just gonna call it. It was Jeff Sherman from Double Line, and yeah, he was late to arrive, but when he showed up, I was like, going back to baseball, it was like the pinch hitter coming and just knocking it out of the park, right? It's like, how does this guy get that ready to be ready for that? Because he came in and he knocked it out. I mean, I had 10 prepared questions ready to go, and we did a fireside chat, so we were talking back and forth. I think I got 3 in, just because he was engaging the entire time, and he just went and did a great job. And so, it was a tough lead off, but I think honestly, that was my favorite one just because we got on stage without me dying.
That was good.
All right, gentlemen, let's pivot here. Let's talk about some actual market related stuff. So the hot button I want to talk about this time around is, I wrote about this for our monthly piece, but we're calling it a little bit of the Goldilocks economy, right? And are we in a Goldilocks economy, or can we sustain it? I think is the bigger question. So for those listeners and maybe some people in here, what is a Goldilocks economy? I think the easiest way I can say it is it's a supportive Fed. So the Federal Reserve that's not tightening, but probably more loosening. Reasonable jobs or resilient jobs is what I would call it more. GDP growth and controlled inflation, right? It's a pretty good area to be in, right? So, Gangl, I'll start with you with the easy question: is are we in? Does this qualify?
Yeah, I think all four of those things you mentioned, the Fed start easing, so we start to get that as a tailwind. Jobs, unemployment still at like 4.2%, still very healthy. So again, that checks that box. GDP growth rate at 3%, checks that box. So I think we're in a pretty good spot. Now, the problem with Goldilocks, it can come and go pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take long for one of those factors to change or the market to get nervous. And on top of that, even the non part of Goldilocks would be, I would put valuation. Market's had a nice run here, so we're at 22 times P multiple on the S&P 500. So there's some things to kind of keep an eye on, but right now it seems like all systems go.
Yeah, I would agree with you absolutely. Is that I think it qualifies. I think it easily qualifies as such, but the market has also been phenomenal, right? Asset classes just in general have been so good, right? There's not many areas you can point to as, well, that's been terrible. Commodities probably the closest thing, and even that's not terrible. But gold all-time highs, S&P 500 all-time highs. Bonds have been positive now 2 years straight after really having a terrible 2022. So from that side, I think we are in a Goldilocks, but it's not what we are in. It's where are we going is probably the bigger question. So, keeping that analogy going, Tyler, what are the bears that are going to wake us up and make us jump out the window?
Well, I think there's plenty of argument to say that we're not in the Goldilocks.
Okay.
Or if we are, it's not going to be sustained for very long.
So do you think we are not? I would be interested to hear your...
I would disagree a little bit.
Oh.
I don't think that we are in a Goldilocks because I think your lower income cohorts are struggling quite a bit. I think a Goldilocks scenario would incorporate everybody in every income cohort, every credit score, however you want to split them out. But I think you're starting to see the strain on that lower income. And I think there could be to your point of, can we keep this going? I'm not sure we can if that a tipping point of that low income moves into the upper cohorts.
Do you think we were then, or do you think we were never kind of in this, hey, everything's rosy range?
Based on your thing, I don't think we were ever, because the Fed has been tightening or been sustaining where they've been at. I mean, quantitative tightening has been going on, still has been. So reducing their balance sheet, which I don't think a lot of people pay attention to. So I think from your Goldilocks scenario, we haven't been in one, and I don't know that we're in one because of that lower income.
Gotcha. And is that your biggest bear scare then? Would be the lower income cohort?
I think if you start, and talking about Jeff Sherman at EAF, he had a great example of this, is if you, or what that tipping point is, I should say. So like if you start to see layoffs in that lower cohort start to increase, which I think you certainly could, especially with the amount of immigration that we've had in the last couple of years. If that cohort starts to, I don't know what the exact tipping point is going to be of like what percentage of those folks cause us to go into a recession. But I think there is a certain tipping point where it's going to be not good for the rest of us.
They start losing their jobs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my opinion on it.
The unemployment rate, you can split it out of like, here's what percentage of this area is unemployed, right? And you can do it by race, you can do it by age, you can do it by income, right? Like the Federal Reserve splits that out. So I don't know what the exact tipping point is for that, of like what percent unemployment it is, but at some point there is that tipping point where it falls into the higher income or higher FICO score cohorts.
Gotcha. Jay, I'd like you to be our man on the street. Man on the street. We're about the worst ivory tower participants here, but we can be. We got Hillbilly Gangl.
Yeah. Certainly, I can relate to the man on the street.
Guy who wears nothing but Kirkland, and we are the worst ivory tower ever. But you kind of be our man on the street here. When you hear and when you talk to people, just kind of what is your opinion? Like, do people think, we're talking Goldilocks, like best scenario we could ever have. Do you feel like people feel that way, or do you think people feel not so hot?
Well, first, so with Goldilocks, like, so is the porridge too cold right now? Is that you got your porridge too hot? Porridge too cold?
You're nailing it.
Yeah. So porridge is too cold right now
for Tyler.
For Tyler.
Yeah.
On the job side of it, so when you bring up inflation, I think that's the one that everyone is still focused on, and inflation being a lagging indicator. I don't know how much that plays into the current state of everything with inflation, maybe measuring what was going on a quarter ago, right? But that's the big political buzz. That's the big talk. And so all you hear about is inflation. Well, is inflation curtailed now, and is it controllable, and where's GDP in comparison to inflation? That's what I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't spend enough time on it, but I think that's what I hear.
Yeah.
Is people talking inflation is, and again, I know it's the political landscape right now too. So that's going to be the buzzword, right?
Oh,
is inflation, and maybe it's really good compared to where it was at.
You know, I'll answer really simply, because I say this a lot when I'm talking with advisors and clients and doing events and stuff. It's like us saying inflation is under control doesn't mean things are getting cheaper. I think that's always what, we always have to be careful about that. Is it, inflation's getting so much better. Well, you're going to the grocery store, it's still more expensive.
Yep.
Right. And I always say people feel great when they look right now. People feel generally great if they're looking at their account balances. They feel horrible when they go to the grocery store. They feel less horrible now when they go to the gas station. I used to say that. It's like you feel terrible when you go to the grocery store. You feel terrible when you go to the gas station. Gas station, actually, you probably feel decent right now.
Right.
We'll see if that changes.
Yeah.
But that's where you actually feel still pretty good. So inflation is always that. Is, what I always say pretty simply is inflation getting under control means it's getting more expensive less fast. That's all it really means. It doesn't mean things are getting cheaper, but you are seeing, like, I use the value meal as actually a really good indicator of people are looking for different ways of approaches, and businesses understand that, and we have to provide them value in a way that shows that to them, that, hey, we're not going to charge you $12 for a hamburger anymore. We're going to give you an opportunity to actually get some value out of it. And I think that's a good indicator that, well, one, it's a good indicator that things are probably slowing down a little bit. Two, it's a good indicator that things are getting more normalized. Would you agree, Gangl?
Yeah, no, inflation, the problem is it goes up, right? So we haven't had deflation where it's actually going down. So all your costs, the things that you touch and feel every day, are going up. Now, whereas most people's wage increase has been 3-4% as well, been going up, but it didn't keep up with that 9%. So right now, I would say your wage increase are at least keeping up with where inflation's at right now. So you should feel better. To Jeremy's point, if you have assets, they've also been inflated, like your house or the stock market's been going up, things like that. So if you open up your statements, they're quite a bit higher as well. But when you go to your day-to-day expenses, whether it's gas or food, lodging, it's up. So
and you're looking at that stuff a heck of a lot more than you are. Yeah.
Right.
And you don't correlate it. I don't think you probably should in your life too much. It's like, hey, my assets are my assets. That should be going up. But food prices, man, stop charging me $12 for that hamburger.
I think the other part of it too is your wage increase only goes up once a year.
Yep.
Whereas, every 3 months you might notice the increase in prices of your groceries. Right?
And
so it's
over the last couple of years, every 3 days.
Yeah, it's a lot more frequency of seeing the price increases versus wages just happen once a year, and you feel great at the time, and then all of a sudden 6 months down the road, you feel crappy again.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's where the disconnect is for a lot of people too.
Yep.
Gotcha. Cool, gentlemen. We're gonna pivot on.
Yep.
So I got a new segment here for our special guest. I'm calling it the Guerin Grill, which they sound like they make some killer buffalo wings.
I feel like that's a food joke.
Come on now.
No,
that ain't right.
Jeez. Okay.
I guess I got to explain that a little faster. The Guerin Grill is when he grills us on something here. Not, again, it does sound like they make killer buffalo wings, but but I want you to grill us. So you tell us, hey, anything that you want. I just want to know more about this, because a lot of times we get caught up in, we have a segment called Nerding Out where we can go deep, and we go, honestly, sometimes too deep. I want to hear what you want to know more about.
Well, there's an interesting one. So let me start more as an economy as a whole. I don't know if you've seen the union that just went on strike.
Yes.
And I just saw the union leader in an interview with him, and how it was very threatening, right? It's like, I will shut you down. I will break your economy. I'll cripple this and that. It sounds like they probably do have the upper hand there in the negotiating power. Does the market respond to something like that?
Gangl, you want to start?
Yeah, I think it hasn't yet. It's only been a couple days, but I think once it goes over a few weeks, then it certainly will. I mean, so right now I think it's about half the ports are shut. I think it's 57%. So we're still getting other things, other places. But the longer it goes on, the more impact. And you're seeing numbers that it costs, anywhere from $1 billion a day to, I saw estimates as high as $5 billion a day to the overall economy, taking that out. So it certainly will impact things. And then as things, we kind of need to restock things that are coming in ports. If they're not there, people start scrambling. So yeah, I think right now we're in this kind of, expectations that will get resolved. But Wall Street guys, I mean, they have to hit them right in the forehead before we say, oh geez, I guess it won't be resolved. And all of a sudden then you'll start seeing a panic in the market.
So they'll respond more to the actual physical depletion of goods and services rather than the union boss being on CNN or whatever he was on yesterday. Okay.
Yeah, my thought is the companies will kind of dictate that pace, right? The longer we are, because we're also going to come up to earnings here soon, right? Won't affect, obviously, the last quarter's earnings, and that's what they'll report, but they also report outlooks a lot. And so if they start, especially the industrial companies, start coming and saying, we can't get our stuff. And we're going to have, there may be an impact if they try to quantify that impact, or if they're just saying, hey, we might not be as rosy as we were before. I think you'll see a reaction there. It usually gets more reactive the longer it goes. And I think the timing of this is not something that was an accident, being that we're a little month and change before an election. He's going to stay in the news. Being bombastic right now is probably in favor. So why not go all out? So there would, I don't think this is going away unless obviously if it gets resolved, great. But I don't think it's going away. And I think the impact will start to feel when the companies start reporting if they can't get their stuff and bring numbers down as a result.
Well, I also think it's an interesting timing, not only for the election, but we also have holiday season coming up.
Yep.
And this is kind of the time when you start to build inventory for that time. So not only is it the election, it's also, I think, a positioning himself for those companies that could be heavily impacted by holiday.
Some of those retailers you're hearing a couple months ago, they were ordering ahead, expecting this was coming. So that's why we have a little more cushion than we would normally have. So we'll see. I mean, it was interesting. The guy certainly was throwing a lot of heat out there.
When you start talking about inflation too, I mean, we just talked about it.
That's inflation.
I mean, that could reignite. I think it could be short term, but any sort of supply chain shock, like part of the 9.1% that we saw was not only just dollars going into the system, it was just the strain in the supply chain. And we heard that number of times from companies. So if this does continue on for 2 or 3 weeks, I think you could start to see some strain in the overall supply chain and potentially lead to goods inflation going up again, which would be unfortunate.
You can tell Tyler has young kids because he's worried about whatever the hot toy is. Yes. Is going to make it off the boats.
Hey, you're not kidding me. I'm sitting here. I'm like, okay, what can I build from the supplies I have in the garage that the boys will be excited about?
I can answer you that for myself. Jay is absolutely nothing.
You guys got a tree fort for Christmas.
What more do you want?
Here's cash because that's all I got.
Speaking of cash, do we still have time for the
hit me
the Guerin grill?
Yeah, we're still
appetizer.
Now, exactly. We got desserts coming.
So speaking of just here's cash. So my other question is, so my 10-year-old George, he's taking an interest in the stock market. He asks me about stuff all the time. And so he had a little petty cash sitting around from birthdays and Christmases past that he hasn't spent it. Probably because we don't let him buy the crud that he wants.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right? So we're like, oh, I guess you just have this little war chest building up. But he had just a couple $100. And he came down and said, Dad, I want to give you my cash and I want to buy some stocks.
Oh, awesome.
Look at that.
And I was like,
you've already won.
This is
by the way, you are way ahead already.
And I'm like, now, mind you, like whatever you're investing in this company, and that $200 can go down to $100. It can go down to $0. And I said, or you can win. And so I'm trying to explain the stuff, and he feels good about his risk tolerance.
Did you give him the give him the camera?
So anyhow,
have you heard about life insurance?
Right. You know what we could do with this $200, son. So anyhow, he's like, I want to start looking at stocks, and I'm like, well, okay, what do you want to buy? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, think of the things that you use, think about things you're interested in, whatever it may be. So as we're drilling through things, and Nickelodeon and Disney and, you know, all these other things, nothing was really sticking. But he said, is Google a stock? I said, Google is a stock. Yes. He goes, I think I want one of those. I'm like, okay, so you're almost out of money then.
Yeah. I'm
one.
glad they split, because it used to be like $2,500 bucks.
And then the other one is he loves baseball. And from our quick research, I believe this is true, but a company, Amer Sports, AMER Sports, AS is the symbol. I believe they own Louisville Slugger.
They do.
And so he was excited to invest in Louisville Slugger. And so we bought a few shares of that. And then about every day he's like, can I see my stocks? I'm like, let's do weekly.
Yeah.
Okay? slow down.
Day trading already. I love it.
Yeah. I was like, you want to get into penny stocks and really,
we can really amp up the juice here.
But that's just like kind of a fun, you know, as you sit in here and you're in the Pickers Market podcast, like it's kind of fun to have the 10-year-old jumping in on that stuff. And
for sure,
that's great. He's going to the Peter Lynch model, you know, buy the things you know of. You know, he's a famous Fidelity, Magellan, you know, mutual fund guy. That's exactly what, I mean, how he started.
Used to say that, yeah.
He did
buy what you know.
more than that. And even Warren Buffett, same thing. You know, buy things, buy U.S. companies. So it's fantastic. He's starting at age 10. He's buying Google, certainly high quality. I own it. Jeremy owned it. You own it in our personal accounts as well. So he's on target. That's awesome.
Well, he was up like 12% after like week and a half.
Boy, I'm about to bring him in.
I think we got a space. Yeah, I think we got a chair open down in our area.
You're out. George is in.
So I would say, you know, I think the model of how you're doing it and how that is being done is perfect, right? Because you're going to get one of two ways, right? You're going to win or you're going to learn. But either way, you're going to get to know, like, I already kind of know what this company does, and I kind of want to be part of it. And that's really, I mean, honestly, that's the work we do from when we're talking about fundamentals. It's not necessarily, do I use the product or do I use the service? But does it make sense with what they're trying to do? Are they growing and that kind of thing? And is that will grow into that? But starting it on that, especially at that age, is phenomenal. Like, that will set the stage for learning, even if this isn't a career, knowing that stuff and knowing how to do it and having a basic assumption of it is so far ahead of the game. And I couldn't advocate for it enough. My kids haven't taken an interest yet. I needle them a little bit every now and then they look at me and they're like, I'll look into that. You know, I get that. So I'm hoping to get there, because I would have a ball with that. Tyler, you were grinning over there.
So I have a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old, and they love CNBC because they just watch the ticker tape and they just watch it go by. Yeah. So I've got them started young. Hopefully they'll take up like so your kids do.
Not the backyardigans in your house and CNBC.
Yeah.
I'm sure that will change at some point. Especially
I gotta get Tyler, you know, I got to get him placement on CNBC just so that, you know,
Dad.
Well, maybe they'll never look up from the ticker
notice.
tape. Yeah, exactly.
They'll be watching.
Like, I was too busy watching the ribbon.
But hopefully they'll take up what your kids are doing and be excited about the stock market.
Yeah.
I hope.
Yeah, as far as the AS goes, I don't really know, but he's doing the exact right thing.
Yeah.
I did quick look at fundamentals. I think they have earnings and stuff like that, so it's great.
Yeah.
I'm actually interested in things like that.
Yeah.
I was blown away that he wanted to give up some of his cash,
Right?
Yeah,
and do it, and so then of course I tell the 20-year-old and the 18-year-old, I'm like, hey boys,
see how this goes.
Looks like your little brother's doing, and I'm like, do you guys have any accounts on your own? And they're like, no. I'm like, you do. I have them for you. And here's what you guys are in.
Yeah.
Oh, love it.
They're looking for the weekend bar,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
You got Anheuser-Busch.
Because I am a user.
Who makes shot glasses?
Fireball's got to be the best performance stock out there. All right, let's nerd out here on our final segment. So we have a life insurance person in house. We have what I would call a life insurance expert in house. He might throw something at me for saying that, but I'm going to say it anyway. I know very little, but I want to start with Gangl because it's my favorite story. Gangl, give us 30 seconds on the gas station life insurance policy, because I think it sets the stage so well.
So while I was in college, I also worked at a convenience store, and a small town, locals would come in there. I knew a lot of them, and literally one guy would come in every week and ask if I want to buy insurance. Like, no, I'm in college. I don't want to buy insurance. He finally wore me down after about a year, and I bought a policy. I don't even know exactly what I bought. I think it's a whole life policy, but I was paying, he goes,
don't know what I bought.
It's like $75 a month, right? It was probably a policy of, 30, 50,000, whatever it was back then. So I believe it was a whole life policy, but he goes, oh, after a few years of paying, you won't have to pay anymore. So this is back in 1994.
Tyler wasn't born yet. Just so
Tyler
everyone
wasn't born.
knows.
No, 94 was.
I was born in 94.
It was actually 1990. Excuse me.
Oh yeah, I was born.
I was gonna. I thought you weren't born yet.
Yeah,
I've used that as an element.
1990. I've been paying 70, and anyway, I still have it, and I really don't know what it has, and I think it's probably got the same life value. So that's where that policy is costing. If I'd been putting $75 like your son into a stock, you know how much money we'd have right now. So that's what
that guy's getting 6 cents a month renewal.
Yeah. Exactly.
This kid's still paying.
Yeah. I wanted to lead off with what not to do with life insurance. And obviously, Tyler, I don't know. I mean, you're probably thinking about it if you're not already there. I have a term policy, but what is more interesting to me is that, again, we're not experts in this field at all, is kind of walk us through kind of how life insurance can be incorporated into kind of just like a planning type of environment. I think that's the bigger element that we do here, right? As a firm at Gradient, is kind of establishing how this fits. So if you can kind of walk us through just a little bit of that, make us smarter, might actually be a good thing.
Well, yeah, to simplify it, and you had mentioned the other day, like if it was called death insurance, it probably wouldn't sell very well. Right?
Fair enough.
So we go with
life insurance.
But the death benefit is in fact, and should be still, the primary reason for buying a life insurance policy. I think that's, as people try to get creative and look for different opportunities, I think sometimes we push away the death benefit and we look at the cash accumulation potential, and look at the long-term care benefits, and look at the no downside, which are all real things. But there has to be a need for that death benefit to make this a real plausible type of vehicle for you. So yes, the death benefit is there. Now, death benefits can run the gamut of why you need one. It can be income replacement. So I'm assuming your term insurance is just to, if something happens, replaces your income, was able to pay off the mortgage, whatever, and just help with the family, right? Absolutely. And then you have things of, when you look at the more comprehensive planning, you look at the entire estate and you're like, okay, what kind of liquidity do we need if I were to pass away? Because a lot of people, their net worth may be tied up in real estate or businesses. And so, in my family, let's say we got my mom, and then there's 3 of us kids. And when my mom passes away, she's got a lake home, she's got a primary residence, she got some cash and annuities. And if she were to give the lake home to the 3 of us, it's really hard to sell a third of a lake home.
Sure.
If one person wants out.
A little challenging. Yeah.
And so to be able to provide, like, oh, one of you wants the lake home, the other 2 don't. Okay, we need to provide X amount of liquid cash for someone to be able to buy the others out. So looking at that, and then obviously the estate tax side of it. So you have the federal estate tax, and you're talking massive numbers, 13 million as an individual, 26, 27 million as a couple before you start to have to pay federal estate tax. Well, you've got state estate taxes as well.
Yeah.
And in Minnesota, where we're sitting right now, the statutory estate tax is 16%.
Is it? Wow.
Once you breach 3 million. So now you're not into this.
Really?
Yeah, there's $27 million.
Better start spending that money, Keith.
but and that's something where we look at, okay, well, do you want 16% as far as the state estate tax goes, or upwards of 40% for the federal, do you want that chunk of your nest egg that you've spent your entire lives building, do you want that going to the IRS, or do you want to provide some sort of liquidity there to be able to pay off those estate taxes? So that's where it comes in on the comprehensive side of it. The other side then too is a big change in these policies is these living benefits.
Okay.
So a lot of people say, well, I don't want to buy life insurance because my kids are fine and I never get to use it. It's just when I'm gone. Well, now with these living benefits, they are exactly what they sound like. They can help with assisted living, long-term care costs, home health care. And so you can actually access the death benefit early before you pass away for your lifetime.
Is that kind of like a reverse mortgage, kind of? Is that? I mean, you're taking money out before
you're taking money out before
the event happens.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so the idea there in the insurance world, reverse mortgage is
not a good. No, I didn't know.
Gangl just swore.
No, from a suitability standpoint.
No, okay, I'm just saying.
But yeah.
Can you give us the worst possible example?
No, it's not that. Conceptually, yeah.
Conceptually, that's what I'm talking about. Yes, because you don't know when you're gonna die. Right? Well, we might have to cut that last.
How about no?
Last segment is chopped.
Okay.
It's just gonna end up life insurance is good. No, but that long-term care aspect of it is a very big conversation happening right now. And so that's another way that people will use it of rather than self-funding your long-term care and whatever you may need in retirement for healthcare, why don't you access this life insurance policy and access the death benefit, which is a bigger chunk of money than what you're putting into it. So it's cheaper, if you will, than self-funding it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't honestly know people were using it for that level of degree. So it's very cool because, I mean, us market dorks, we think about life insurance. We think, when I die, here's a big pile of money.
Buy term and invest the rest.
Yeah, exactly right. It is kind of how we do it. But, as you're not quite there yet, but you're going to get there, and we're old. So we need to think about those kinds of things from our side. And I loved that you were like, oh, really? I love the light bulb moments. That's what we're here for, is to, we can learn stuff too. So from our side, we like to give that every now and then, that we don't know everything. And another arrow in the quiver certainly won't hurt. No.
Yeah.
Tyler, did you have anything?
Nope. I think that was good. Life insurance throws my head for a loop still. Just all the different types of policies. And maybe that'll be a time for another discussion.
Well, might be a longer one, huh?
Yeah.
Well, the idea there is you don't want to be the expert on it, right?
Yeah,
So you let someone be the expert on it. I'm definitely, you called me an expert. I'm definitely not an expert on it. Just run the business. No, I put experts in place.
There you go.
Yes.
Yes. Hire people to make you look good. That's what I do too. I'm just the pretty face here.
Right.
And I'm not even very good at that. All right, gentlemen, we got to cut it at that. Jay, thank you very much. This was awesome. Thanks for having. Hope to show back again at some point.
Thanks for having me, you guys. I appreciate it.
Until then, take care, everybody. Thanks.